Hey guys, welcome to Man Chat. I'm one of your hosts, Ben. I host this podcast with two of my closest friends. Up first is 5'3 3/4, John.
Listen, Ben's an idiot. In spite of that, you're still going to love the show. So go ahead and hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons.
All right, that was a little rude. Danny, what you got to say?
Hey, do me a favor. Don't refer to me as your friend. Hit the intro.
Yo, what are you doing right now?
The big V. Look, man.
All right, man, let's just jump right into this shit. So,
I made my wife wake up and drive me there anyway.
you...
Is it major?
Pasar con eso. Pasar con español.
¿Qué pasó, papá? ¿Cómo estás? Any questions?
Now, when you bought that sweater, right? You just go, fuck it. I'm going full Mr. Rogers. You've tuned into the Man Chatter podcast. All right, man. Look, we don't often do bonus episodes. We don't often just do pods other than the days we're scheduled. But some crazy news dropped today that I thought was interesting that encompasses kind of like what we always talk about, right? Be it race, sports, just opinions about most of the shit that we find interesting. And consensus was Danny couldn't come on the show. I mean, family's priority, and shout out to him. Kind of was last minute. And he's got young kids, so can't knock him for that. So thank you so much for getting on the pod, man. I know it was like a last minute thing. You also had some family stuff, but you know what I'm saying? We scheduled it together. So yeah, man. It's a crazy day, bro. Like, I don't even know where to start, man. Like, it's so much that happened in the last couple hours. Like, where do you want to even begin with this shit?
Let me tell you first that when you sent me those messages on WhatsApp, I believe I was getting ready to take my son to a concert, a recital, I guess, for orchestra. And immediately I knew that you wanted to do a pod. Like I just knew it. And I was like,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know, we
we've done
weren't
this.
planning
Yeah.
on doing it. And today we talked about doing just a regular podcast today.
Yep.
And I said, no, I can't make it. I got things going on with the family. But once you sent me those tweets and the story, I said, all right, we're gonna make some time.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, I'm not surprised because when did Miami let him go? 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
week and a half.
Yep. About 10 days
Stephen
ago.
Ross, that whole Miami organization, they've been shit talking this dude for the entire time, and he has said not a word. And I'm thinking either he's about to drop something crazy on these guys and they're trying to defame him ahead of time. They're trying to just destroy his reputation when he drops something. Or this guy, I was giving him credit, like, you know what? He's gonna take the high road and he's just gonna go on and move on to the next job. Either way, I mean, it wasn't looking good for the Dolphins. You know what I mean? But now we come to find out, and we're gonna get into the story because you definitely have more time to read it than I have. That it's not just the Dolphins. This is, you know, we know it's a league wide issue.
Yes.
But some of these allegations are mind blowing. Not surprising, but the fact that you know they're making their way to the light.
Yeah, like what I found, I hadn't, John. I'll be honest, bro. This is why, like, I'm so thankful that like we do a podcast together, and then adding that because like I hadn't even thought of the fact that they were preemptively striking against Brian Flores. Like I hadn't even registered that as a thing, bro. Like to keep it 100 with you, like I was like, oh, like they were because it was like I remember during the season it was like the whole Tua issue, and it was like, oh, it was Stephen Ross that had a problem with him, and then right after they fired him, it was like, oh no, Stephen Ross wanted to test Tua a bunch of times for all his alleged body changing and all this shit because he's a professional athlete that works out and has a trainer, like he makes money, like his body changing is totally different than like a 50-year-old man's body changing. Like Tua's still a growing kid, you know what I mean? Like it's like all these weird little things coming out about him. And I hadn't even put until you said that I was like, that's a hell of a coincidence, right? That's either one, a hell of a coincidence, or they were already trying to destroy his reputation, right? Which is why he's the only coach that was interviewing for other jobs that had a winning record, right? I think he's like right at 50%, right? I think he's like 49% total winning percentage. The last 2 years was like 10-6 and 10-7 with a hurt quarterback and a quarterback carousel last year. 10-7 this year while losing, no offensive line and losing Tua for like 7 games. So, and putting that team together, figuring it out, like that to me is a hot commodity of a coach, right? Like just and take away like the feelings about him and all that stuff. You put that on your resume. I was like, oh, this guy could be a good head coach, you know. And then I was like, and then all this stuff started coming out. And then I remember watching like clips of ESPN where they're changing their narrative around Brian Flores, right? They're
Right.
like, this whole time we heard it was Stephen Ross with the issue. I guess it was really Brian Flores. You know what I mean? Because the Adam Schefters and the thank you, Mr. Chairman, people of the world, were like, oh, we got our talking points now. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the way. And it wasn't even again like completely not putting race into it, right? Like I like in that moment, I was like, look, I am that person that likes to go, hey yo, that's race. You know what I mean? Like, I do like to do that, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
jokingly,
That's what you do.
yeah. Like, and I do with that. I was not thinking that at all. 100% not. I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because like I hadn't, he's no longer the Dolphins head coach. Who cares?
Hmm.
He'll land somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But then those stories start coming out, and then this happens, right? With everything, I was like, holy shit! Like, let's get one thing clear. Of what I think he ended his career today. I think he will never be a head coach in the NFL because of it. I don't know how, because you're literally calling the entire league and every owner and every like executive racist, right? Like that's what he's doing with this lawsuit, because he's suing the entire NFL, all
The league.
32 owners, yeah, the league, everybody. That's it. Like you don't get to sue the person you're trying to get hired with and then expect to get hired. He ended his career today. He
No, I
did.
mean, absolutely. Who's going to want to hire him?
Nobody. Nobody.
This is a
Uh,
career-ending move.
yeah. Like there, and the other thing is, colleges aren't going to hire him, right? Because the same thing that happened when previous people take stances, right? That it will always be the questions that get asked in press conferences. Oh, do you think they only hired you because, or do you think they didn't interview you because? Well, why do you think that this? You know what I mean? He'll be for the rest of his life is like that guy the media goes to be like, oh, you think you're only hired because he's white, huh? That's probably the only thing you think. You know what I mean? Like he'll be that guy for the rest of his life. So what he did today is one to me crazy, right? Because and also courageous, but insane to me that like at 33, 30, he's a young guy.
40.
Like 40, still young in
Yeah,
coaching, right?
no,
There's
young, for
7-year-olds
sure.
like, yeah. His career is over. Like I don't know what else he does after this. That's the one. That's the first thing, and then like more stories started coming out. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, "Yo, that's it. That's it. This is Colin Kaepernick all over again." You know what I mean? In the sense that like he'll never
Yeah.
get another opportunity. Never. That's it. 40 years old. Your dream, your life is over with, and now you got to figure out some other shit.
And I mean, what are you gonna say that they're blackballing you? Choose the term, but I
Yeah.
mean that. What are you? What can you say? You are suing the league and all of the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Who would want to get involved with you at any point, knowing that
Yep.
that's a possibility now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then like first we hear that we see the headline, Brian Flores is suing the NFL. It's like what the fuck,
Mhm.
and then you
Yeah.
read the details of the lawsuit, right? Like him saying that he shows up to an interview in 2019, I guess before he got hired with the Dolphins,
The
with the
Broncos interview.
Broncos.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Broncos interview, them showing up late, and then showing up like all disheveled and just like blasé about it. Look, I don't think that has me personally, right? Like, and I'm Mister. I'm not like yo. I own the race. Like I own the card of what's the damn it, the lady. Remember the joke we made last week? The actual race card.
The
Like
Rosa Parks NAACP card.
yeah, the Rosa Parks NAACP card. Like I'm not doing that. Like I don't know if they're showing up like that because he's black, right? Like I'm not saying that. But if all the stuff that he's claiming in the lawsuit are true,
Hmm.
I wonder, and I'm just raising the question. I wonder how many of those situations have happened to somebody like a Matt Rule or a Urban Meyer or a previous non-head coach, right? Like, because previous head coaches are different, right? Like a first-time head coach is going to be treated very differently
Hmm.
than a former head coach, right? Because like you're already in the good old boys club and all that shit. But when you put all those things together, right, like with the text messages from Bill Belichick and all these other things in the lawsuit,
Glad you brought that up. Those text messages are, before you keep going,
yeah,
I mean, those text messages
mm,
are, this is like you, let's say, let's say you're married and you're texting your girlfriend, or
okay,
you're texting your wife thinking you're texting your girlfriend. Like this dude, Bill
yeah,
Belichick, just
yeah,
he's like, "Oh no, I was trying to, no, it was the other Brian. That was my other side piece I was trying to message.
yeah,
My
exactly,
bad."
yeah, yeah, like it's
Man, and he tried to play it off too. He goes, "Interviews
yeah,
on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." Eagles got it. I heard from Buffalo and the New York Giants that you're their guy. Hope it works out for you if you want it to.
mm-hmm,
And he says, "That's definitely what I want. Hope you're right, coach. Thank you." And then he says, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Dabble? Just making sure."
yeah,
And then he goes on to say, um, "Sorry, I fucked this up. I double
yep,
checked and I misread the text. I think they are
yeah,
naming Dabble. I'm sorry about that." And then he's,
yeah.
"Thanks, Bill." But Jesus, what? That was a whole string of conversations before he realized. I mean, he didn't realize it. It was
No, he
Flores who
didn't.
said,
Brian
"Hey,
is
are
Brian.
you talking? Are you talking to the right Brian?"
Yeah, dude. Like, look, I we had a long text conversation earlier, right before we got on the show, and all that shit. Like, again, like, is I've been part of an interview process where I interviewed and they already knew who they were going to hire, right?
Mhm.
Like that's happened to me. That's happened to everybody. Like
That's
that
happened to me
happens.
too.
That's happened to everybody. But I just listen. I like everything. I actually just have questions, right? Like how oftentimes, and I'm sure that happens to white head coaches too, right? Like how oftentimes is a coach with the last two seasons winning record get passed over like that, right? How many times does a head coach with a winning record even get fired? In that article that I sent you from Pro Football Talk, was it Tony Dungy got fired after a winning season in Tampa?
Mhm.
And the guy from Detroit that was Tony Dungy's offensive coordinator,
Caldwell.
Jim Caldwell, winning
Yep.
season gets fired. Now Matt Rule from Carolina out here winning 5 games for being a participation trophy at Baylor, just taking his team to the was it Big 12 championship, not winning it,
Yeah.
just showing up and losing,
Yeah.
right? So like probably Oklahoma, and still out here get collecting paychecks.
Yeah.
Like the league,
He's out
look,
here firing the brains behind the offense. Who is it that they
Joe
let go
Brady,
of? Joe
Joe
Brady.
Brady, the
Yeah.
Mister Joe Brady built, not built, but helped Joe Burrow because he was the passing game coordinator at LSU.
Right.
Like blaming everybody else. Look,
Yep.
at the end of the day, we know the NFL is 70% black, right? Well, I'm curious. Like I'm always, and I, it's weird to me how NFL players have, let's say when Ed Reed hung it up, was probably 36, 37 years old, probably
Yeah.
like around that age, maybe 30, whatever, right? So he had, let's say he played football since he was 5 or 6, had
Yeah.
28 years of experience. Say he was the best safety in the league. I think he's only had one like assistant coach job when he was like a safeties coach at Buffalo. And I'm not saying that maybe he didn't want those jobs. Like maybe he didn't
Right.
want to be a head coach and all those things. But the fact that there isn't more of those guys that were Hall of Fame greats that eventually become coaches, D coordinators, or head coaches, but it's more oftentimes than not the guy who didn't play. Look, I'm just
I don't put stock into that because, first of all, look at the coaches. Great coaches. Not all of them played, and if they played, they
yeah,
never really played at a high Hall of Fame level,
correct. Yeah.
right? Jordan, these great athletes, whether it's
Hold on,
basketball, football.
Jordan is the example of like of how to be a failure of a great, right? Like because he's a terrible owner.
Well, I'm just saying, like you have this innate ability that not everyone else has.
Right.
And so, yeah, that coupled with the fact that you're probably never going to outwork him in practice either, um,
True. You're never gonna
it's
see
you
that.
can't teach
Yeah.
that. You can't coach that the talent that you're born with, right? You can work as hard as him, but if you don't have that natural ability, you can't teach that. And some of these greats, they don't know how to teach greatness that they're born with. How
That's a
do you
valid
teach
point.
that? But people that never played, they can understand the X's and O's or strategy or how to play inside technique because well you got
Hmm.
to play inside or outside technique because you don't have the speed. You got to bump them off to the safety help or whatever it is. You're not Dion. You can't just decide to
You're not the best
turn it
out
on when
there.
you
Yeah,
want to. And
yeah,
so
you're right.
I don't put a lot of stock into great coach. Why don't we see more Hall of Famers? And of course in football a lot of it is 70% black, so most of the Hall of Famers are going to be black.
Right.
But I don't put stock in why don't we have these great Hall of Famers
It's weird, right? And
in
you're right.
head coaching positions.
And you're right because most of the times it's like the average linebacker that ends up being a better coach. And you know what I
Who's
mean?
that?
Like that.
Vrabel.
Yeah, Vrabel. Exactly. Like, look at that. Like perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, but Vrabel also like coached at Ohio State. Like he did his thing. I don't know how. Like it's almost like suing for defamation, right? Like I don't know how Brian Flores wins something like this, and I don't understand. Like he has to have like for him to sue, it can't be just off of feeling, right? It can't be
No,
like
no.
it has to be like I weighed the analytics, and it said for me to go for it on 4th and 3. You know what I
All
mean?
right,
Like
Giants head coach.
yeah, you like that. That's I had to bring that full circle. Shout out to him getting fired, but like he looked at stuff and got more information than just some text from Bill Belichick to think and to go forward with a lawsuit of this magnitude. Look, it just broke. We don't, and you know me, right? Like I don't often like to have a reactionary conversation to some like you know what I mean, like to something that just popped off, like without the news of it coming out. But
Yeah, you believe that those words coming out of your mouth? You really believe that? What you
I've
just
tried to be
said?
better about. I've tried
You
to be
are
better
Mr.
about it.
Reactionary. Come on.
I've tried to be better about it. At least give me that, right? Like it's I'm a work in progress here, man. I'm not a finished product. This, like I'm saying, like do something like this. I just thought like I was watching YouTube earlier and like Lebitard was having a conversation with Howard Bryant and with David Sampson and that
Yeah.
whole thing. Like, look, the league doesn't lose, man. And I don't know what his end game is, but I guess like what we can agree. I don't know how you feel about it. Like, what are your thoughts on like on the Rooney Rule, like the NFL's version of affirmative action, right? Because it's not saying that they'll hire black head coaches. It's just saying that they'll interview more black head coaches. There was a reason why that rule was put in, right? Were they not interviewing? Because this is 20 something years ago, I think now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at it now. I had to look it up. 2003, almost 20 years.
Yeah. So there's a reason why that was put in. So does that mean is that a sign of the NFL going, yo, man, like we should probably at least interview them? Or
Yeah, but
was it
here's the
go ahead.
the Rooney Rule. So you asked me what I think, and I think
Yeah. What
it was a nice. It was a. I don't think that it's gotten anyone hired. Rooney Rule or not,
facts.
I don't think it's gotten anyone hired
Hmm.
because it
Hmm.
was just something that they put in there to give you the appearance of we are looking at a more diverse field of coaches that maybe would not have gotten a look at, we would not have looked at before.
Right.
But it doesn't do anything. It just makes you interview people. But just like the Giants, the Giants acknowledged in this, I think I was looking at the Pro Football
Pro
article.
football talk, yeah.
Yeah, they acknowledge, or no, it's actually the Bleacher Report article that they had already made their mind up on Dabo, even though before interviewing Flores, but that they
Yep.
were proud of the diverse group of applicants that they get out of here. What
Yep.
is that? The Rooney Rule is
Means
nothing
nothing.
except wasting that guy's time.
Hmm.
It's demeaning, if anything. It doesn't
Hmm.
help. I think. Look, I hope that Flores has some ammunition. Obviously, you don't drop this like you said. This is career ending. You don't drop something like this without having something, some substance, something substantial behind it, right? This, if anything, will bring more change than the Rooney Rule because this is huge. You're suing the
Yes.
league, and I I have a feeling the Dolphins knew something was coming because how they've been defaming him for the last 10 days, 2
So
weeks.
fucking
It's
brilliant,
just
bro.
been going. And he drops this now and I said it all makes sense. Someone knew something was coming or he like maybe let it slip or said something or whatever. Someone from his team leaked something, but it's just too coincidental that the Dolphins have been kind of defaming him and talking crap about him and he's kept quiet until he dropped it today.
Dude, like look, you saw the group chat later, right? Like after you got back from the thing. Like and I'm completely honest, right? Like I had like things that I wanted to say, right, dude. When you said that, you took all the wind out of my sails in a way that like it completely made me look at things differently, right? Like
Which is why I didn't say it in the group chat. I was saving it.
fucking, you're fucking. Listen, hey John, listen, it's fucking genius, bro. It's fucking genius because it. That's the other part that we can go into the Dolphin shit now. Like that's to me that's one of the bigger allegations in that shit, right? Like he's not saying like they did, because I don't remember at any point any other articles I read him saying like, oh, they treated me like this because I was black. He's
Mhm,
claiming unprofessional interview practices. He's
mhm.
claiming like bullshit ass interviews, because you said it right, like it's wasting my time. If you already think Brian Dab was gonna be the guy, motherfucker, I still have to fly to New York to meet you. Like I could have flown to LA to go, you know what I mean, or to anywhere,
Right.
Houston, flown anywhere else for that interview. I scheduled you on this day. You're just wasting my fucking time. That's disrespectful to me. That's unprofessional. You know what I mean? In interview practices. Again, like I don't in him in any of the things he said is like, oh, they did this to me because I was black. But what he did brilliantly was like state all the issues that he's had throughout the interview process and bring light to it.
Yeah.
So that's what's made it more interesting. Dude, when you said that shit, I hadn't even thought, like I hadn't even registered about the whole Dolphins preemptively striking against him and the media uh force feeding that narrative
That
towards that.
narrative. I mean, look
It's
at these three bombshells from this Sports Illustrated Instagram screen capture you sent me. You mentioned one already. 2019 Broncos team officials, including John Elway, held a sham interview uh, to appease the Rooney Rule, which is we talked about it, and they showed up late and looking disheveled. And then the next two are Miami specific. Also that year, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered Flores $100,000 for each loss to improve the team's draft order,
mhm,
which he refused. And in
yep,
2020, Flores was pressured by Ross to meet with a prominent free agent quarterback for lunch on a yacht, a violation of league tampering rules, which
mhm,
Flores said he also refused to do.
yep,
Those last two are huge. I mean, league tampering and the other the first one I mentioned, which we know teams do. I mean, the Sixers did it in the NBA to get high
yep,
draft picks, but to
yep,
offer him 100K per loss on
mhm,
top of whatever he was getting paid to throw the season,
yeah. Those are huge, bro.
that
Like
is huge.
those are. I was talking with my father-in-law earlier, right? Huge Dolphins fan. He's like, dude,
Mhm.
whatever gets them to sell the fuck to get Stephen Ross to sell the Dolphins.
Mhm.
He's like, I'm just like, I
I
don't care. Like, what? Just so fucking tired of this guy, dude. Like, it's again, like he brought light to so many different things. And look, our, you know what I mean, like our boy, like he said, like, yo, maybe the Broncos are just unprofessional as shit. Okay, I want to know of other, like for me, right? I want Adam Schefter to text his chairman or email him and ask how many other times did the Broncos show up like that for other coaches, right? Like, is that the standards of practice for the Broncos executives to show up like that? Because that leads to more questions about uh what is it, like morale in the business. Are all teams more like the Washington football team, or are they more like whatever model organization is in the NFL? You know what I mean? Like whatever the fuck that organization is. I don't know. I can't name one that hasn't had some kind of allegations off the top of my head.
Right.
So like what is that the norm? You know what I'm saying? Is like, and that's, I think that's the biggest issue. Like I think that's what the NFL is really afraid of, because to this point right now, nothing but John Gruden has come out about that 3 year long investigation about Washington's team, right? Nothing's come out
Right.
about that. So it's, what are we like? I think that's what they're really upset about, is like he put a light on things that they don't want to come out, right? Because any of it is money. But I don't know. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, no, and I mean, I can't. Adam Schefter, since that Gruden thing broke out, and we saw the emails between
Mm-hmm.
him and Bruce Allen
Yep.
of Washington, right? The chairman,
Mm-hmm.
his daddy, whatever you want to call
Yep.
him.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
How do you believe anything that comes out of his mouth as a so-called insider when he's essentially just sending his notes to a team executive and saying, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
should we do
How's
this,
this?
or how
Yep.
can I make it sound better? Tell me what you think." He's a journalist, supposedly a reporter, an insider, right? And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's got inside information, but he's just a spokesperson for the team or for who he probably has a relationship with other executives,
Yeah,
saying, "Here's what I got. Tell me how I can spin it your way.
yeah.
Give me your stamp
That's
of
why.
approval. How do you want it? How do you want me to deliver this message? I'll be your spokesperson." That dude is I mean, I have no I don't want to say
Every
respect.
time.
I don't know him, but I get nothing from him now because whatever he puts out there, what who's delivering that message? Is it
Yep.
news or is it
hmm
just something that you as a spokesperson for that team are delivering?
Yeah, like every time I follow him on my personal Twitter, right?
Hmm.
Ben from Manchatter. You know what I'm saying? Give it a hollow, give it a follow. Every time he tweets something, I was like, yo, who'd you get this from? Like every time, any tweet, it doesn't matter. I was like, yo, who okayed this tweet? Was it the chairman? Was it the executive? Was it the actual owner? Because that's he's the voice of power, right? Like he's the spokesperson, he's the PR person for owners. Like that's how I see him, right? Like that's
Yeah,
why I
that's
will.
what I see
I
now.
yeah, that's how I always rock for the rest of forever. I'll always rock with Jay Glazer. I mean, that's my guy, especially after that Levitard interview. Shit
Yeah.
was amazing. Look, man, like I don't. The thing I came away with from this whole Brian Flores thing is that dude at 40 years old ended his career, and I could see very quickly how people are gonna turn to speak on the power of the NFL. Like, oh, the NFL can't be. You know what I mean? Like they'll always speak to the power of the establishment
Yeah.
instead of being like maybe there's something here to look at. You know what I mean? Like where it's almost like don't make me uncomfortable on Sundays. Don't make me think about this. Don't make me think about how the fact that 99% of the coaches are white. You know what I mean? Like there's one black head coach in the NFL, one black GM. That's it.
I don't even know who they are.
Mike Tomlin for
Tomlin
Pittsburgh,
for is it Ozzie
and
Newsome? Is he still there
no,
in
no, he
Baltimore? Not
retired.
even
No, he
him. He
retired.
retired a few years ago.
No, Chris Greer, that's the GM for the Dolphins. That's it. So you're saying out of every personnel person, everything, all of it, every single position that's possible, not one, like or not.
I
We
mean,
can't get we
but
can't get a
let me
third.
give you.
Can't
I
get a third.
mean, but I
You
mean,
hire.
if we go off what I said earlier, I mean, most people in the NFL, 70% of the NFL is black,
hmm
and like I said, most coaches end up being the ones that are less athletic, the ones that had to
hmm
rely
Yeah.
more on strategy or maybe having to figure something out where they had to make the game work for them because they didn't have the athleticism, the natural talent or ability. And so that's why those guys are
Yeah,
better
but
at spotting talent, better at coaching. I'm not look because these white guys
the,
just aren't athletic enough, but they're good to see who the good athletes are and to
right, right,
coach
right.
those
Yeah, yeah,
athletes.
yeah. I think,
I
but
mean,
I,
this
I
is a
think we
sensitive issue, but I don't know
no,
what the
yeah.
answer is.
But I'll say this. Like I think I understand what you're saying, and I don't think you're. I think you're right with what you're saying in a way, but I think like we also got to think of like the players that had their career shortened that
Yeah,
you know what I mean that could have been someone with 70% black. Like there's, and I'm not saying because they played in the NFL they need a head coaching job. Like that's not what happens. But like, how many times have we seen unproven college coach get ahead? Like there's only
every year,
32 positions
every
every
year.
year, every single year. How many like you're so like the guy from Stanford to me had always the one that replaced Harbaugh, right? To me would have always made a great college great pro coach. Just always had that kind of disposition. Like he
Hmm.
takes Stanford. These are not people who are going to make the NFL 99% of the time. They're going to be lawyers, doctors. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a prominent Ivy League university. He makes that team credible every year.
He also had Andrew
Harbaugh,
Luck for
yeah,
a couple
no, no, no.
years.
Andrew Luck was with Harbaugh.
I don't think
I
so.
thought was he?
I
Or
could be
was
wrong.
it
I could be wrong. It was maybe it
but
was a transition, but yeah.
I'm saying like he still puts out a great winning product.
No,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Harbaugh did the same thing with that team. Got a head coaching job. You know, I'm not going 1-to-1, but Harbaugh played in the NFL. You know what I mean? Was a serviceable quarterback. And like I'm just saying, like
Yeah.
I'm
Captain
not saying
Comeback.
it's 1-to-1, right? That's that's delegitimizing all the hard work that those other coaches have done. I'm just saying like there's a clear lack of opportunity because the Rooney Rule is just for the interview, There has to like how do coaches get fired with a winning record, and how many times has a coach with a winning record been white and gotten fired?
No,
Like, you know what I'm
I
saying?
agree. I
I don't
mentioned those
know.
other things,
I don't
but
know. I genuinely don't know.
one coach is not representative of
Right. That's anecdotal, not empirical.
the actual talent and able head coaches out there, or able coaches that could become head coaches that just aren't getting the interview or aren't getting hired for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And of course, that reason is, according to Brian Flores and according to a lot of people, and like systemic racism,
Troy
right?
Vincent.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, racism. Yeah. Well, Troy Vincent was the executive of the NFL PA, I think, and he was in the
Uh-huh.
Pro Football Talk one where he mentioned it was like, look, there's all these opportunities that we just don't get. Like, where you
Yeah.
lose your job, you might not ever get another one. Like, I can't, like, off the top of my head, right? And I'm just going off of obviously a person that doesn't watch the NFL as much, but just like kind of has a superficial view of it, where like I could kind of remember each coach for each team. I can't remember a black head coach that was hired somewhere, maybe a Dennis Green, like that lost his job, and I don't like, and then like found another one.
Yeah, he
Like,
went what, from Minnesota to Arizona,
yeah,
or was it? Yeah,
like, so like I'm saying, like, yes, the NFL has had black head coaches, but like how often is like that black head coach gotten a second opportunity when like Norv Turner was 175 years old,
yeah,
and you know what I mean, and like kept like that's like those are the things that I have questions about, and we'll never know, right? Like the NFL will never release those documents. Like that's not what they do. They're a private business, and the commissioner works for the owners. They're never going to do something to purposely make themselves look bad. So I'm
hmm
just saying, I just got questions, bro. Like, and I genuinely don't know. And we'll follow this up on a future podcast and be like, okay, look, these are the times that a black head coach got a second chance. Okay, cool. Now I know. Like I was wrong earlier about the Eric Bieniemy thing. He's done every interview. Coach is
yeah.
one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. Can't get a head coaching job, but somehow the wide receivers coach from New England gets a head coaching job. I don't know any wide receiver from New England that's a baller. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No,
I
those
don't know.
wide receivers. Look, that I can tell you, those wide receivers
And New
are
England?
playing in that system in New
Yeah,
England. I,
yeah,
I joked around Brady being a system quarterback for so long,
right.
um, but they definitely. I mean, who did they have? They had a bunch of guys that were my height running
Yes.
routes, and then Randy Moss towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
No, get out of here. Like they're
No, but I'm not saying
that I
that
don't understand that.
That wasn't Joe Judge though. Like I think Joe Judge came way later when they weren't as good, when they had like a Nikhil Harry. I'm gonna keep shitting
Okay.
on Joe Judge forever, bro. Like now, he had an 11-minute rant. Fuck that. Like I'll never like that guy for a reason that doesn't even matter. Like it's
I
just
mean,
a stupid.
look at who the Lions hired Matt Patricia in 2018.
Yeah,
Who, I mean, the Lions are the Lions, but
yeah.
they went from Jim Caldwell to Matt Patricia to like two coaches. I guess they're interim coaches in 2020, and then
Hmm.
Dan Campbell. But I
That
mean,
former coach of the Dolphins too for a couple games.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I
You
just
would
that's
it's I didn't even know that the only coach, and I should have known because that franchise keeps their coaches for a long time. Pittsburgh. Funny
yeah.
enough, coincidentally enough, the
Rooney
Rooney
Rule.
Rule
Yep.
was named after their owner, or their at least the original
Hall of
owner.
Fame head coach too.
Hall of Fame head coach,
Hmm.
and he's the only one in
That's it.
2022.
Yeah.
And we have one black head coach and
One.
one black or minority executive.
Yep.
Um,
That's weird, right? Like
yeah,
a little, like, you know what I'm saying, like a little bit, like, in the former player Ozzie Newsome was a former tight end. I think Hall of Fame tight end. If correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
Like, I'm not saying that every NFL player deserves the job over a white coach. Look, you have great head coaches. You got the guy from Cincinnati, baller. The Rams, baller. Sean McVay is going to a second Super Bowl in 3 years,
yep,
right? In 4 years,
yeah.
you need to get rid of trash ass Jared Goff. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying like it's just a little strange that a league that's surrounded by, you know what I mean, like engulfed by not just the players, former players that didn't quite make it, didn't have great careers, and all these things that played 2-3 years, like most of their careers are. Not a
Right.
single one of them can get like any of those positions, any of those high level positions. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I just got questions about that. And look, I was thinking about this earlier, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, which you always have no problem doing, right? I think to me, I think a lot of the times it becomes easier to be comfortable with people who look like you, right? Regardless of race, color, or creed, right? Like
I agree.
when you growing up in Miami, it like we grew up, and I'll give my own story for this. I always grew up around Cubans 95 to 98% of it, right?
Yeah.
And we would make like derogatory comments about other races, right? Like about other nationalities. We would, right? And then until you meet those other nationalities, you're like, yo, I'm a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like until you experience those things. So like when you're in a room and everybody looks like you, it's very easy for me to think that like you're gonna have an inherent bias to be like, yo, I just want to hire people that look like me. Because it's easier for me to run my business to hire people that look like me. And maybe I'm wrong. But when you make billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars every year, you're not going to risk that by making yourself uncomfortable in any of those positions to be like, oh, let me just hire this black guy because the woke culture or social justice warriors need me to hire him. No, they're gonna be like, nah, I'm gonna hire who I think is the best person. But 9 times out of 10, as we see, that person looks just like you, or they're your son.
I will tell you that, well, that too. I will tell you, look, since we're talking about race, the definition of race, or the, that made up concept, but since we use race now,
Right.
is a categorization of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into groups. So people that look like you,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah.
what, not just what the NFL does, what anyone does.
Facts.
People tend to gravitate towards people that look like them. The
Yes.
groups that they hang out in, that's that is the norm. Okay, the exception is people looking for diversity. I like to like go in and hang out with different types of people.
Yep.
I would be the
That's the
only,
army, though, right?
they
That's
would
the
call me,
army.
they would call me the white dude, but I'd be the white dude
Yeah.
with like in a room or a group full of like black people, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's the army thing. That's growing up in Miami, and the
Yep.
army thing that
Yep.
puts people from all over the country that
Yes.
haven't seen, like, I remember when I was in basic 2004, and like there was a guy that hadn't seen a Mexican person other than the migrant workers that would come through Idaho.
Yep.
Like, okay, yeah, that's different. Like seeing a
Mm-hmm.
migrant worker is one thing, seeing like just a Mexican American or any other
Just
Latino,
being
or
Mexican, not
it's
just
right.
being a
It's
migrant
not the,
worker. Yeah.
yeah, like that's what he associated, I guess Mexicans or other Hispanics
Mm-hmm.
with. Just that's all he knew, and
And
he
that's the
never left.
reality for him. Yeah.
And that's a reality for him. But he would be uncomfortable around other people that didn't look like him. Not to make an excuse, right? But that's why we have systemic racism, because companies, groups, corporations, whatever the size of the group is, yeah, you gravitate to people that look like you. And when you hire people that look like you because that's what you're used to, that's what makes you more
Yep.
comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
that then becomes the culture of the company
Yep.
or the group, which then becomes systemic racism.
Yeah.
That's
It's
not,
very easy to do.
I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's how it naturally happens. That's also, there's not to say that there are people that are actually bigoted and going out of their way to not hire minorities. That is
Right.
also a reality.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that plays a major role that maybe you don't talk about as much, which is that the systemic racism is built in because we as humans gravitate towards people that look
Mm-hmm.
like us. Like,
Yes.
that's the reality. That's, I mean, you look
Look.
at north at what is it, the northern, I was gonna say Slavic countries, but the like Sweden and Norway, like
Yeah. Yeah. Nordic countries. Nordic
the
countries.
Nordic
Yeah.
countries, they all look the same. You know
Yeah.
what I
They're all
mean?
white. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. No. Look. And you're right. It's not a it's not a specific fault of any one race, right? Like it's just what inherently comes natural because that's what makes you comfortable,
and
right?
then
Like
we have people that are bigoted, which makes
and
it the
what
issue.
makes which makes it the issue when then like yeah, and then how I don't know how often that bigoted person is the owner of said franchise, right? Again, like giving the Washington football
They're in
team
their
example.
70s.
You
They're
know what
in
I mean?
their
They're in their
70s. They were,
70s. They probably weren't very pro civil rights. Like, why is this? Why is this? You know what I mean? Person sitting at my counter or sitting at my chair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, had
right.
those thoughts growing up. Had those thoughts taught in from their parents, because again, like
Yeah.
if you're
It's
only
tough.
growing up in 99% people that look like you neighborhoods, and you're only
Hmm.
told like, yo, watch out for them, it just it's just, to me, it's just an easy thing to understand. Like and you're right, I hadn't thought of it in that sense. And number two for you, you know what I mean, like that, it's just, it becomes an inherent bias, because anything outside of that, like you get the example you gave, you're in basic, and the guy you're in basic with had never seen a Mexican person before. You know what I mean? Like that's
That
insane.
wasn't a
Like,
migrant worker. Yeah.
yeah, that wasn't a migrant worker. Like I had never, not growing up in Miami, you see pretty much everything. Like I
Yeah.
had never seen somebody, like talk to somebody with like a southern accent, right? Like growing up in Miami, you don't really see that. Like we have our own
Right.
specific dialect and accent to it, but like a heavy southern accent from like Alabama was like, what the fuck is he saying? You know what I mean? Like that's same kind of shit, but it was like, to me it was different. And it
Hmm.
just, and that, to me, the army opened up my eyes in so many ways, because I was like, okay, I got exposed to so many different cultures, so many different kinds of people. I had friends. I would drink with people from Iowa, Tennessee, at 6 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii, and then at night I'd go out to clubs with people from East Saint. You know what I mean? Like I had the spectrum of friends. Like I never
Yeah.
just chose one group of people, and that helped me, man. That opened up my eyes to understanding what the Tulsa massacre was, understanding why these things are problematic, and you know what I'm saying, Christopher Columbus and all that shit, before it was like woke culture-ish to be. So there's nothing like, there's a fear that comes with diversity, to think that, oh, this person's gonna take mine, or this person's gonna take, you know what I mean, like that whole argument of it. And it's sad to me, you know what I mean, like, but I don't know how you change it, because it's so easy to be comfortable, right? It's so easy to just be with Colombians every day. It's so easy to just be with Cubans every day, because it's your family, it's who you're always around.
Hmm.
It's, you know what I mean, Dominicans, so on and so forth. It's just such a natural thing. And then you put that on a grand scale, where like that is a business model, and
Right.
that is a system in many different ways, to be like, no, there's no such thing as systemic racism, to me is ignorant as fuck.
Inherently, inherently, it's built in because that's what we do as people.
Yeah.
We gravitate, we congregate, and then we hire and whatever else with those that look like us. That's not a something that I'm picking at. That's a fact. That's what we do as human beings. That's how we
Yep.
survived, and
Hmm.
that's what we still do to this day. So that's not crazy to say that we don't do it now as part of what happens in culture and part of organizations and hiring. That's again, the problem is not the inherent uh
Bias.
bias, not the bias, but the inherent like what we do naturally as humans to gravitate to those that look like us. But the
Hmm.
problem is when we have people that are bigoted, that are actually you know, they have that, they were taught or have that hate in their heart, that they
Right.
actually go out of their way to not hire minorities because, or not hire someone because they don't look like them. That's the
Hmm.
issue. Like naturally, we are around people. We want to be around people that look like us. That's just a fact.
And bringing that up, it becomes, when you're in a room of, of just pure whatever, like, not, I was gonna say pure white, that would have been weird, but like if we're just in a room of like all Colombians or all Cubans, right? And then that one bigoted person starts saying, yo man, these others, bro, like, I don't know, like I don't know if they're as smart, if they're as talented, if they're as strong, and
Yeah,
all these things, and like, and you're in that room, like it's very hard to be that person in the room to be like, yo man, what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because you're in a group, you're in a tribal setting where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna stay quiet and just kind of be okay. You know what I mean? Like, even if you feel it, because it's very difficult to speak up in those situations, right?
is it?
Because you,
It's not.
no, but I'm saying for people it can be, right?
Oh
Like
no, for
especially,
sure, for sure.
yeah, no, look, like I think because of our childhood, right, that we had, and our, you know, and our service, it's a lot easier for us to do it, because we've seen it, right? Like we were like, yo man, like you've had, like I know you've had
I'm
that
gonna
one
call it out.
racist that you've had that one racist ass E6 that like hated this, like clearly picked on that one soldier, on that one private, for like a little bit too much. I'm like, yo man, like, and make little comments, like you've seen it,
Yeah,
like we've
yeah,
like if we saw it in the military, we're like, you literally, we all gave the same oath, you're gonna see it across the board. right? And so when you had that one person and you don't call it out because you're afraid, I got many counselings in my time for speaking out against that shit. You know what I mean? Like you have, it's hard to do that though. For I think for a vast majority of people, that for a lot of people it's just easier to keep the status quo, right? For a lot of people, it's easier to just be like, let me just go ahead with this group, man, because this is who I'm with Monday through Friday. I don't want to rock the boat. And that's what Brian Flores did to bring it back. Like that's what Brian
Yeah.
Flores did today. He rocked the fuck out of this fucking Titanic. He was
Yeah.
the iceberg in this shit, son.
Man,
He
he
yo
got to it before they even got to the iceberg. He started. I don't know what he
black
did.
ice, son.
He
Black
deployed.
ice.
He's something. He deployed grenades in the lower
Mm,
sections of the boat before they hit the iceberg. That shit's gonna sink before it gets there.
yeah. And
But
to
I needed to be brought to light. Like these issues needed to be brought to light. His career is over. He won't coach again.
that's over.
The
Yeah,
NFL, what
he'll
are they
be a,
gonna do? They'll
he'll be a
settle?
martyr.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe they
he'll be a
settle or
martyr. Yeah. Sorry, I will keep talking over you. Go ahead.
no, I
They'll
said maybe
settle.
they settle, or I don't. I have to go back to see NFL cases to see how they what they usually end up doing if they win their cases or they end up settling out of court. But if they settle out of court, I'm sure he's going to be paid handsomely
Mhm.
by the league for him to he'll sign his NDA for him to keep his mouth shut and never coach again. And I, I hope that it's more than that. I hope that actual change comes because this Rooney Rule is bullshit. The Rooney Rule
Mhm.
gets people interviewed for what? For a job that's already been given to someone else, but
Yep.
that you have to interview for because you happen to be black or Hispanic. That's insulting.
It is.
If
It
we want to
absolutely
hire
is.
more minorities, then we need some real change. And the Rooney Rule is not maybe a step in the right direction, like a baby step, but it's been in place for 20 years and
Nothing has
it
changed.
hasn't really done anything. Nothing's
No.
changed. We have less
This.
black head coaches now than we did 10 years ago. One.
Yeah. We have one, and the NFL came out with this thing saying that all the merits are baseless and that they're going to look into this and all this shit. Look, we know what the NFL is going to do. They're going to try to. They got their Super Bowl in 12 days. You know what I mean? They're going to try and push the shit under the rug as quickly as they can,
Yeah.
and make sure to tell ESPN and everybody else to talk about it for one segment to say you covered it, but don't talk
Right.
about it too much. That's what's going to happen. Like that's what's going to go down, man. And that's just wild, bro.
Look, one head coach, one black head coach, and he's a Hall of Fame head coach. That's
Yes,
that's the
the
standard that he
standard.
had
Yeah,
to set in
yeah,
order to keep his job. He had
yeah,
to be a Hall of Fame type head coach. We got people like Matt Patricia coaching the Lions. I
yeah.
mean, come on. We got
Mm-hmm,
unproven college coaches, unproven other
mm-hmm,
assistants,
mm-hmm,
and the one black coach had to be probably the best coach out there. Like he had to be a Hall of Fame coach in
mm-hmm.
order to be in order to have that job.
You know what we
That's
should do, like as a
that's
follow up,
ridiculous to me.
and I think it's it's fucking wild to think about. I think what we should do as a follow up when we do more research, like because this stirred up a lot of conversation, a lot of thoughts in me. Is we should look at like how many assistant coaches are black, right, in the NFL,
Yeah.
right? Because that's who like most of the head coaching pools come from, right?
Hmm.
To look at how many head coaches are black in the NFL and how many of them interview and how many of those out of all those interviews, how many of those times, we could compare resumes like for like, oh, perfect. Look, I'll give you a perfect fucking example, right? It's just the guy that was just a Houston Texans head coach, black guy, David Culley, I think it was,
Hmm.
has been coaching for 45 years or some wild shit since he was like
Jesus.
a GA, right? Coached at every level. It took him till 63 years old to get an NFL head coaching job, right? Like coached everything at every level. Had
Hmm.
no like, so he has experience everywhere. Only job he didn't have was NFL head coaching job. Only had that
Right.
for a year, and then they fired him. Which shout out to him, he got like 25 mil, so he got his paycheck.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand all of it, right? Like when you have 29-year-old head coaches getting hired, you know what I mean? Like it just like, and again, like Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, great head coach. I'm not saying that he's done anything. I'm just using him as an example. Like, why? why aren't there those kind of opportunities or secondary opportunities for other colored coach for black coaches? Like they don't. I'm serious. Like besides Dennis Green, I cannot think of another head coach that was black that got a second job. Off the top of my head, I literally cannot think of one. I
Well, I
can't.
can't. I mean, Marvin Lewis was with Cincinnati for a long time, doing a
Well, he
lot of
was
losing.
doing a lot of losing. He was 9-7, 8-8, 5-11. He was there for a long time. Look, two
Yeah,
in the same division.
I think he had a 10-win season
I think he had like I think he had a
or
12-win
11.
season, and Aldi
Yeah, yeah.
Dalton's. Yeah, I think he had an 11 or 12-win season. Andy Dalton's like second or third year. Like he's
Hmm.
done his thing. You know what I mean? Like, but again, after he lost that job,
I haven't heard of him.
I don't even till you said his name. I completely forgot him.
Yeah,
You know who gets a bun? Josh McDaniels, another head coaching job.
again.
Again, like I can't think of a second on the resume of people. I can't think of a second stint as a head coach. Leslie Frazier, maybe. Like I don't even know if he like. I don't. Maybe like I don't. He's a DC. He was a great DC for a bunch of different teams. I don't know if he's gotten a
Yeah,
second head coaching job. I don't know.
I don't know. There are 25. This is an article from like October of this past year. 25 black coordinators. So that's not
Mhm.
just assistants, but 25 coordinators.
So OC or
Um,
DC?
combined.
Yeah, and so
Plus there are
25.
yeah.
Okay, and how many of them got hired in this coaching carousel? That was this past
I
season.
mean, we know how many got hired, right?
Yeah, zero, right?
We still have one black head coach,
Yeah, yeah.
and in order for him to be that black that one minority head coach, he has to
Uh,
be a Hall of Famer in 2 Super
has
Bowls.
crazy thing is I don't think he's ever had a losing season.
No, he came close this year.
Yeah, he came close. 8-1 or 9-8-1 or some wild shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like 9-7-1. I don't know. Sometimes I can't do math. It's just wild, bro. It's just wild. Dude, that point about Brian Flores being preemptively attacked was fucking brilliant, man. Like that completely changed the way I thought this pod was gonna go because it opened up a whole new way of thinking for me. I don't believe myself to be a narrow-minded, focused individual. I also got a lot of the rant out in the group chat.
yeah,
A lot
I
of
know
that
you
was
did.
trolling, but like a lot of that was trolling, and he gets all sensitive and shit. But it was just when you said that shit, it all made sense. It all made sense. Good on you, John.
I
Good
want
on you,
to
man.
read this Bleacher Report article, or at least a part of it, and then before
Go ahead.
we sign off.
Let's do it.
So I know you read the quote from him, right, where he says, "God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of
Yeah.
football, but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals." I mean,
Mm-hmm.
right there, he essentially he says, "That's it. Like, I know this is ending my career."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me read the next paragraph because this talks about the Dolphins kind of smearing him. Um, okay, we talked about the $100,000 per loss that he declined. Flores, let me see. Dolphins general manager Chris Greer allegedly informed Flores that Ross was mad for winning games and compromising the tanking effort. The Dolphins ultimately finished 5-11 and picked fifth in the 2020 draft. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ross also allegedly attempted to force Flores to engage in tampering with an unnamed prominent quarterback in 2020. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins owner allegedly invited Flores to dinner on his yacht. Upon arrival, Flores said he realized uh,
That he was
was
gonna be a
supposed to
mediator.
serve. Yeah, was
Yeah.
supposed to serve as a clandestine meeting between the coach and quarterback. He said he declined the meeting, which would have constituted a violation of NFL tampering rules. After the incident, Mr. Flores was treated with disdain and held out as someone who was non-compliant and difficult
Mm.
to work with. The
There it
lawsuit
is.
says
No, angry
Flores
black
said
man.
the incident. Yeah, exactly. That's what they're painting
Mm-hmm.
him as.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I did that was strange. I mean, the Dolphins are a terrible organization, but I was like, man, they have been really like smearing this guy's name. But what is
Little drips every single
you
day
hear
for like the
hear
last
you
10
hear
days.
the leaks? Oh, he's an asshole. He's this and that. I was like, all right, well, maybe whatever. Anyway, so let me finish reading this. Flores said the incident led to the Dolphins smearing his name through leaked reports of personality conflicts Behind the
Hmm.
scenes, Jeff Darlington of ESPN reported January 10th that Flores' relationship with Greer and quarterback Tua Tagovailoa had deteriorated. So,
And Darlington is another chefterish person for me, bro.
yeah.
Like he worked a long time. He was like a beat reporter for the Dolphins at the Herald. I remember
Hmm.
Darlington for a long time. Like so he look, man, it's very easy uh for people to what's the word? Like cozy up to power, right? Because you have
They're going to
power
give
by
you what you need.
yeah. They're gonna give you access and you're always as a reporter in the media in these days, you're gonna cozy up to power because if you fuck with power, you lose all your information, you lose your access to power, which is the biggest thing for them. So
Yep.
yeah, man, I don't. It just dude that completely changed my whole thought process, bro. Like
You're
it's
welcome.
more an indictment. It's more of an indictment on the Dolphins organization, and like I don't know if Stephen Ross has these practices if this head coach looks like him. I don't know that, but his allegations more to me stem more for a systemic issue in the NFL, and it needs to be looked at. But the NFL is gonna do what the NFL wants to do, bro. Like they'll in about 6 to 8 weeks they'll release a video with Jay Z in a boardroom.
Yeah.
You know them
Jay
laugh
Z
them
again.
yeah
The
them
BS.
laughing it up and saying I don't know. Yeah, I think Cap should have gone about it a different way. You know what I mean? They'll use somebody some famous person of color to distract you, and then see how can the NFL be racist? They have a black friend, and they'll go that way, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's fucking wild, bro. The man ended his career at 40. Like it's over. It's over.
It's
I
over.
got I got nothing else. All right,
Nah,
John.
man.
We'll holler, man. Jesus. Over at 40.